Thank you very much. And actually, I think we've got the mic already. Everybody hears me. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
So, who went to the concert? Wow, I'm impressed. I was mentioning to the earliest early birds who are here that last night I'm walking past the conference line there, or the concert line, and I hear someone saying, yeah, I don't know about the morning. There's this great thing on AI I want to go to, which of course must be mine, right? I mean, it's a great thing on AI, it must be for me. And they're like, but that's not going to happen. I've got to get myself some breakfast, and it wasn't you. I saw it, because you're here, and you did not look like the person saying that. And I don't think I see the person here, but if that was you, well, I'm only calling you out anonymously, so you're okay. But thank you for coming. Really glad to have you all here today, and glad to be actually doing my first SHRM presentation. It's great to be at this conference and be here with you all. Thank you. So, I'm Craig della Penna. I'm the founder of ASOP Partners. We are a leadership consulting firm. We work predominantly with private equity firms, helping them do talent assessments of their incoming candidates and talent assessments of the companies that they're acquiring, and helping them plan for growth going forward. And I've been doing that for about 15 years. And over that time period, prior to that, I was at Boston Consulting Group doing people and organization consulting. And prior to that, I was actually a corporate finance guy doing internal corporate finance for 2 different commercial banks. But I was always drawn towards the people side. The people side is really what got my heart, even at BCG, where strategy is the most important thing you can do. I kept seeing us put all of this time and effort into creating great strategies that never went anywhere. And why? Right? Why did those beautiful strategy books just sit up on the shelf? It wasn't because they're wrong, because they're always right, because I did them. But it's because the people weren't aligned. And I realized, wait, there's more than just being smart. There's more than just IQ. There's this thing called EQ. And so I got into this field, I say 15, I guess it's 16 years ago now, as we all get a little bit older, and fell in love with the idea of understanding talent and solving talent problems for companies. And I would do that as a practitioner, but I kept seeing my clients ask me for, Craig, teach us what you're doing. How come you're able to produce such good results when you do your assessments, but you find things that we've missed, and when we don't use you, we have our typical hiring approach, our hiring outcomes. So I developed a training program around that. I then developed a platform around that to implement structured interviewing at scale. I'm going to do my absolute darndest to tell you very little about that today. This is not a sales pitch. I want to give you actionable advice to take away and implement on your own. But that's where my expertise comes, and that's why I'm up here talking to you all today. I assume a lot of you have come today because, as Jesse and I were talking about this just 10 minutes ago, you hire a candidate because the individual who shows up for the interview is wonderful. They have all the right answers to the questions. They show up well cut. They show up with energy, enthusiasm. And then the real person shows up to come to work. Okay? Right? And that person who's that rock star who we're betting all of our future on, 6 months later, we're processing termination paperwork for. Right? Someone seen that before? I think I heard one murmur, or maybe everyone in here murmur, yes? Right. So you're not alone. There's a very sobering statistic. There is a very sobering statistic. Promise you it's sobering. There we go. 82% of new hires will not achieve the success you hope them to have. Right? Now are you awake? If you haven't had coffee, this should work for you. 49%, this is according to a 2016 Leadership IQ study that looked at 16,000 hiring scenarios. And they found that 49% of the people hired were not there 18 months later. So that's clear failure. 33% still were, but were rated as generally mediocre in their roles. It was the 18% that were rated as truly highly successful, delivering what we hoped they would deliver. That's a really bad outcome. And think about all the hours of work that we all put into getting it right to have that sort of an outcome. And it doesn't have to be that way. It can be much better, but we have to change the way we go about interviewing. There are very clear benefits to structured interviewing. You don't have to take my word for it. If you look at SHRM's 2025 report on passive secrets, they talk about greater confidence in hiring decisions. They talk about lower bias claims, because if you use a structured interview, it's defensible, and you're not changing your questions depending on the person, ultimately leading to an improved quality of hire outcomes. Great benefits. However, you always have to watch out for the second part of the slide. The hiring professionals, the true experts in the field, us, people who know hiring, we say 24% of us will say that we always use structured interviewing. About half will say that I use it occasionally, sometimes, and about another quarter to a third will actually say that I don't believe in structured interviewing. I think unstructured interviewing is better. Right? And if you look at all the social science research, this is one of the most frequently studied topics in IO psychology. Every single time, structured interviewing is the best method of interviewing, and between that and cognitive ability testing are the two most valid ways to assess a candidate. And yet, only 24% of us do it. Why? Right? Let me ask a question. Why do you think we don't implement structured hiring enough?
Ego.
Ego? Okay, love it. Because I know better.
Lack of knowledge.
Lack of knowledge?
There's a time commitment to creating that structure.
Yes, thank you. I'll give you the $20 later. I appreciate the earlier conversation we had. It's hard. It's hard to roll this out. It's actually what I found with the training program. When we first rolled out the training program, we rolled it out to a Fortune 500 SaaS company. We trained 450 managers on it. They hired 1,300 people. It was the first year they ever broke their vacancy factor, because not only did we roll out structured interviewing, but we cut it down to 4 touches. You could only do 4 interviews, and you had to make a decision. No more of this, hey, Jesse, I got a candidate for you. Are you free at 3 o'clock? Can you just meet this person that you know nothing about? You know nothing about the role, but I like you, you like me, you're gonna come do this interview. That doesn't work. So we went to 4 interviews. We did structured interviewing, built around the cipher, having a really clear understanding of what we're looking for. They hired everyone they had planned to hire that year. The CFO was very upset with me. And their first year attrition went from mid-20s to about 11%. Right? It works when you do structured hiring really well. What happens when you don't do it? Death and devastation. You've got some real hard dollar costs, and we're all familiar with these. Right? I pay someone to sit in that seat for 6, 9, 12 months, and they consume my resources, so I guess that's good, and I get to make a check mark on my filled role metric, but that's the only benefit. All the losses are the money we waste on them, the salary we're paying them, the sign-on bonus, relocation bonuses. If we had recruiter fees, we've got to pay that. If we were kind to them and we gave them an end-of-year bonus because they were trying really hard, if we fire them and they have severance or at least unemployment, there's a bunch of hard dollar costs that we pay without getting the value. And that's the cost that everyone sees. But I think we all know that that's not the true cost. Right? The true cost is what's beneath the water, what's the rest of that iceberg. Number one is the time you waste training that individual and all the lost productivity as the team stops doing their work because they're helping this new person learn and relearn and relearn and relearn because they're not good, so they take 3, 4 times your effort to teach them. Lord help you if they're a hiring manager, because what? A's hire A's, B's hire C's. B's, C's, both answers are correct, right? They never hire above them. You can guarantee yourself that. So if you've hired a B or C hiring manager and they've been in place for long enough, you can pretty much count on having to do a lot of rooting out of the people they've hired underneath them. But the number one driver of massive losses is the fact that they don't get the job done. Because no one pays someone $100,000 a year to produce $100,000 a year benefit. The expectation is much more than that. And none of that benefit ever comes to the company. All total, this adds up to 15 times. Our Titanic has sunk. We're just left with the costs. We need a better way. I've told you one story about the training-based. Let me talk to you about the platform-based. So I had a client who was an automotive services company, and the issue of talent had reached the board level because the private equity firm had invested a couple years prior, and they had these great hopes, but the economic results weren't matching. How come? Because they didn't have all the GMs in the shops that they needed. And because the GMs that they were hiring were mid-caliber, they were hiring Bs and Cs underneath them. So bad service writers, bad front desk people, bad technicians. So I'd been working with the CEO on a couple other things. He said, Craig, what can you do to help us? So we did a pilot of our software. He was one of our first pilots, really, first pilots at scale. And after 2024 testing it, in 2025, we trained them up in that December of 24, 25 we went live. We trained 80 managers on the approach and the tool. We rolled it out for 4 key roles because we wanted to limit it so it could be easily digestible by the managers. And over the course of 2025, 260 people were hired into these 4 roles. However, enforcement was a challenge. The company wasn't really ready yet to stick its neck out on the line and say, you only hire through Hire Best. If you don't hire through Hire Best, you don't hire. They weren't willing to say that. A lot of ego in the way, a lot of knowledge that they weren't comfortable with, and the fact that we did the training and then general managers got replaced so people came in with their own ways of doing it. The net result was 116 people used Hire Best, 144 did not. This was a beautiful blessing for us. We now had a test environment and a control environment. And I think we know what I'm going to say. Clear differentiation between the two. 22% reduction in attrition just in what we've seen so far. This produced clear economic benefit. If we remember the top of the iceberg there, just the hard dollar costs, because I'm not going to sell based off of any sort of soft dollars, just at the dollars saved in salary, we saved them 2.6 times the fees that they paid. And had they enforced everything, we would have had 6 times the fees of our software plus our implementation. There's real value to doing structured interviewing right? And if you invest in structured hiring, if you get it right, you're able to get measurable ROI, a data-driven process, and much more confidence in those hiring decisions. So what do I mean by structured interviewing? Now let's get into the meat and real understanding of this topic. When I talk about structured interviewing, I'm largely talking about these 3 main buckets. Number 1, defining the need. Let's get really clear on what we're looking for. Because the one thing I can guarantee you is if you don't know where you're going, you're never going to get there. Number 2, collecting the data. How are we conducting our interviews, which I call collecting the data, because that's what we're trying to do in an interview. And we're trying to get data that will prove whether or not this person can do the role. And the third is making the decision, making sure that we don't stumble at the 1-yard line and not actually bring the ball across and score because we just start making gut decisions after we've had a great data-based approach so far. And AI is the missing piece. This is why I'm so excited about where we are right now. Because, and I don't know your name, but the woman who mentioned the hard work of structured interviewing, AI makes it so much easier. Whether you're doing it on a DIY basis or whether you're doing it through a platform, it takes a lot of the burden off of it and off the change. We're going to, for defining the need, use AI to enable better role definition so that we can help managers quickly get at a sense of what am I looking for in this role. For collecting the data, we're going to empower them so they no longer walk into an interview unsure of what they're trying to ask and what the objective is, but make it easy for them to pop into that interview, kind of supporting their bad habits, to be very honest. Right? We try to require them to do a bunch of extra thinking beforehand, but I'd rather enable the behaviors they already have and give them better results than shoot for perfect. And lastly, elevate our decision making. Bring in AI so that we can pressure test the assumptions we have, pressure test the data we're finding, and making sure that we're considering everything rather than just whatever we happen to remember. Now there's a few caveats to cover. And as I walked through the expo hall yesterday, I saw, I think every other booth talked about AI. Right? And I am not a computer programmer, I'm a practitioner. But I know enough about computer programming, I've advised enough software companies that I know that once you've built a tech stack, to layer on AI on top of that isn't really effective. You need to build something from the ground up the way you want it. It's very hard to remodel your entire tech stack around that. So It's the latest buzzword, it's great, but you have to use AI intelligently. Those of you who may be science fiction geeks, you might know Asimov's laws of robotics. Those of you who watch iRobot might have a more modern updating on it. At the end of the day, these are the laws that we came up with to make sure the robots don't kill us and overwhelm us and whatnot. I think TA needs its own set of laws for AI. And so I've taken a first stab at the ASOP's laws for TA for using AI in talent acquisition. Number one, humans deserve to interact with humans, and AI will not interview you. And I had a great conversation with the CEO of a AI screening company yesterday. He almost got me. I can see if the choice is between a resume going in the trash bin or someone meeting with AI, okay, I can see maybe a little bit of a value proposition there. But at the end of the day, if you're one of the many, many companies who say, our people are our greatest asset, meet with my bot, and then I'll decide whether or not you get to meet with a person. It sends the wrong message, let alone any of the decision-making aspects there, which gets us to our second point. Human decisions require human decision makers. We need to use AI to help us make better decisions, not to make the decisions for us. I don't know the kid who programmed this software. I don't know what implicit biases he or she may have had as they created the algorithms and as they created the behind-the-scenes mechanisms in the software. So I really want to make sure that I'm seeing data rather than just results when I'm going to trust something. Which brings us to the third. How many have used ChatGPT here? Okay, perfect, love it. I'm not gonna have to teach you what prompts are, this is wonderful. How many have gotten a really wonderful, very convicting, very confident answer from ChatGPT that was totally wrong? And you ask it and you say, hey, I don't see any of that data there. You're right, I made that up. Like, okay, great. Can you not make it up? Sure, we'll do. And then the next time it makes it up again. Part of the solution to that is you do have to blend agentic coding with hard mechanical coding. So the best systems are going to have real Python-based or other language-based coding that then moves over into the agent, that then moves, because there's things that AI can do and there's things that AI cannot do. And we've spent a very frustrating year as we've tried to improve and improve, realizing the limitations of that. Especially for us. When we do our own assessment interviews, we'll do a 5 to 6 hour long interview. We'll generate about 100 pages of Word templates. Asking AI to assess that is impossible. It doesn't happen. That's not what we advocate for any of you to do. That's not what I'm teaching here today. But so you need to make sure that AI is going to answer your question and ask AI to negate the question as well. If you're giving me a strength, tell me Jesse's top 4 strengths and disprove each of those as well. That way I can look at the data and see, all right, all of Jesse's strength data is coming from this one job and the disprove is coming from 4 jobs. But because it's Jesse, it's actually all of the strengths are very well supported and the negation isn't there, so we're good and we can hire Jesse. Number 1 rule, don't insult your audience. Okay, great. So let's talk about how to implement each of these 3 solutions. So we talk about enabling the role definition. We're going to start there. And as I was thinking about this presentation, I was reminded of a great quote from Paul Bear Bryant. Who knows Paul Bear Bryant? Okay, there's all my football fans or my Alabama residents. So coach of University of Alabama, and he had this great quote. It's not the will to win that matters. Everyone has that, right? Who wants to make good hires, right? We all want to make good hires. Who's willing to do a bit more extra work than you typically do to make sure of that? Well, it depends on the role, Craig, because if you're talking about the gas station clerk, they're just going to quit anyways. As soon as McDonald's ups their 25 cents an hour, they're going to leave. Okay, so we know there's a limit, and there's a place where you're willing to prepare and where you're not. On those most critical roles, if you're willing to prepare, it will drive a huge difference for you. And I'll also make the argument why, even at the entry level, that preparation actually is scalable, so it makes a lot of sense to put in those few extra hours for that role, because you're going to repeat that 1,000 times. So it's a second per role. It makes a lot of sense. Because hiring missteps often begin before the interview ever happens. It is that preparation that needs to occur before the interview, because we have another set of stats that are going to scare us here. This one's a good one, right? 80% of recruiters say, hey, I understand the role. I have a high to very high understanding of the role. This is an ISIMS study that was done 8-9 years ago. What do you think the hiring managers say? There we go. 61% of hiring managers say that their recruiters have a low to moderate understanding of the role. Who are recruiters in the room? How do you like that stat? Right? You're working so hard to please that top population, and at the end of the day, they say, I don't really know if you know what you're doing. It's not your fault. It's not really their fault either. The problem is we don't have the right tools and the right common language to get clear on what we're looking for. We rely on this. Everyone uses a job description. They're a core requirement for a lot of legal situations and compliance situations, so you have to have them. If you want to post a job, I don't know what else you would post other than a job description, so you need something like this. But most companies don't invest a lot of time in perfecting their job descriptions, and if they did, I would say you've broken them for recruiting, because if you put the level of specificity and clarity into a job description that really spells out how to do the job and exactly what you're looking for, you're doing a wonderful job of educating your competitors on how your business actually works. So it's good to have these a little bit fluffy, a little bit aspirational, but that ruins them for recruiting purposes. There's nothing that we can really use in this to narrow down what are we prioritizing about this candidate and why they will or will not work for this role. We need something different. Introducing the cipher. The cipher is our take on the traditional job scorecard. And the cipher gets really clear around what you're looking for in a role. The cipher has 4 key elements. So if you can remember the word code, you can remember how to do a cipher. Code is charge, outcome, deliverables, and efforts. The charge is that one sentence, that pithy explanation of what are we looking for in this role. I need a sales guy. Okay, I can get you a sales guy, someone who works at Best Buy, someone who works at Microsoft, someone who knows how to sell trains, someone who knows how to sell model trains. They're all sellers, radically different sales muscles. We need more than that. So in our charge, you see a scrappy director of sales to re-energize the sales force and institute process rigor for a fast-growing company. A lot more selectable in that one statement. It takes a little bit of time to craft that one statement, but once the recruiter and the hiring manager are clear on that, much more effectiveness at finding what you're looking for. The outcome is the statement that gets clear on, in a couple of years, once this person's up to speed, what is the value they're producing for this organization? What is the specific outcome or achievement they will have produced for us? The deliverables are the 5 to 7 prioritized accountabilities or achievements the person must be able to accomplish in order to achieve most of that outcome. And I'm being specific with that word most. If you try to explain 100% of it, you won't be able to prioritize, and you won't be able to cut it off at 5 to 7. And you'll be looking for a lot of data that doesn't really matter. If you can get 80 to 90% certainty on a role, you're there. Don't worry about wasting your time on the 100. It's going to dilute what you're really trying to get after. And then the efforts explain each of those deliverables. That's 3, 4, 5 highly specific statements that get at what does success look like for that deliverable, and how, for our company, for this specific role, must they be able to achieve it? What is the specific challenge that has to be overcome in order to be successful on this deliverable? The deliverables are always focused on the business outcomes, with 1 to 2 exceptions. There's always a cultural requirement. How does our company actually work? That must be radically honest. We often want to write aspirational culture statements, and that's beautiful, and when I'm doing culture change work, I fully support that. We should be stretching our culture, we should be making it better. But when we first hire someone in, they have to be able to swim in the pool that we have, even if we want them to help us change the pool. So let's be honest around how our culture actually works today, And what's the work styles? What's the behaviors that will actually make them successful here? Then if they're a hiring manager, we have to spell out what is the team management role that they have to take on? What's the nature of the team they're inheriting? Are we picking up a bunch of rock stars and you just have to kind of step out of their way, grab your little conductor baton and just keep conducting all of these primo violinists who are going to make beautiful music whether or not you're there? Or are you talking about a total rebuild? You're inheriting a bunch of challenges that you have to help overcome. You get a lot more clarity, and this is a key enablement of structured hiring. It's very hard to do structured hiring really well without this level of definition of what you're looking for. But once you know what you're looking for, you're going to be able to screen faster, both in terms of eliminating resumes that have no evidence that matches your deliverables, but also have fewer interviews because you know the data you're looking for. AI helps us do it faster. This is where AI comes in. AI for creating a cipher, AI will help you process through information and will help you pressure test some of your thinking. So in the first bucket, we're going to use AI to take our job description, flawed though it may be, and combine it with a high quality interview transcript that we have from the hiring manager. We're going to sit down and spend half an hour with that hiring manager, asking them a series of questions, which will be in a resource we have at the end. I have a QR code for you. We have a job cipher creation guide with some suggested questions for you. I suppose at this point, I'll also hawk my book, available in the SHRM bookstore, and we have a whole bunch of stuff there too. Come see me at my book signing after this. But you're going to write a prompt that says, take my job description, take the notes from my hiring manager discussion, and together synthesize my first cut of my cipher, synthesize my 5 to 7 key deliverables. And then you're going to work on that. You're going to spend 15, 20 minutes tweaking that to make sure that at the high level, those 5 to 7 things really work out well for you and they feel like what you're looking for this role. Once you're comfortable with that, you're going to ask it to add the definition. I'd like to see the efforts underneath each of those deliverables. Tell me specifically what success looks like based off of the conversations I've had so far, and also tell me how I have to achieve that success. They're having so much. They're not having more fun over there. What are you saying, Craig? No, we're having fun. We're doing real hard work here. They're just, I don't even know what they're doing. Third, once we're good on our job cipher based off of our internal view of the world, let's expand our thinking. Let's use AI to bring in that challenging perspective from outside of our world and say, suggest a few other deliverables that I haven't surfaced yet. You might even, so let's say you're in retail, look at Walmart, look at Target, look at Kohl's, Menards, pick your regional department store for their marketing director role and tell me what I might be missing based off your understanding of what's expected in that role. It might be right, it might not be, but it's challenging your thinking, and it's anything that interrupts your pattern of just doing what you've always done is a great step to make sure you're thinking intelligently enough about what you're looking for in this role. With that, we'd have a good cut of our cipher, and we're ready to start interviewing. So let's talk about collecting the data, and how are we going to empower our managers? Who does this resonate with? All right, we got our interviewer, we got our candidate, and we wish them luck. There's some sort of black box that happens. The interviewer maybe relies on some training we provided to them. Maybe they rely on some training that they've had before. Maybe they rely on YouTube. Maybe they rely on ChatGPT, but they're doing something, spending some time. What I love about seeing interview transcripts is I get to see some of the god-awful questions that people ask. I'll share one with you. This just blew me away. If our team were a bicycle, what part would you be and why? I will say, I've got, my bag is back there. I will give a copy of my book to whoever can come up with a good, legitimately effective answer to that. You can all come up with good answers to that, but come on. I mean, what's a wrong answer to that? A spoke? Like, just don't be a spoke. That's no good. No, you got to be the hub. The hub is...
The pedal. Got to be the pedal to move things forward.
Why do you like people to walk all over you? You got to stand up for yourself. You got to be the fork, all right? You got to take control. See, yes, be the bell, right? I'm going to come back next year. We're going to do a coaching one of these, and it's going to be the bell, all right? I expect to see you all here. Hopefully not at 7:30. Maybe next year they'll let me do it 10 or something like that. Anyways, if you don't have a well-scripted interview approach, you don't know what's happening in your interviews. You don't know what crazy questions, and let's be honest, the bicycle question is a crazy question. I'd much rather my interviewers ask that question than, so you're like what, 30, 32? What do you think about kids? Do you have any yet? Do you have right? We don't want to ask any of those questions. So I'd much rather them ask the bicycle question than the illegal questions, but I'd much rather have them actually ask real questions. So we need a better approach to interviewing with the right questions so that people will ask questions that lead them to the data that allow us to make the right decision. So we're going to talk a lot on this slide. This slide will get a little bit complicated. We're going to talk about structured interviewing and AI. The best way to implement structured interviewing is really quite simple. You want a standard set of questions that you ask the same time, the same way of every candidate. So that way any variation in the data is coming from the candidate, not from the questions I chose to ask you because you remind me of this person I used to know, and so we started talking about this, versus you remind me of this other person I used to know, so we're going to talk about that, or you, right? I want to make sure that I'm asking the same question the same way every time, eliminating any bias in that, so it's just data. You want to do that electronically so that you're using tech and AI to calm that chaos. Make it easy for that manager to run from their last meeting into this interview, pick up the interview protocol, and run through it. We'll offer our set of questions. Our questions may look crazy the first time around. We are huge proponents in the unbiased, open-ended questioning approach rather than the highly scripted behavioral interviewing approach. Behavioral interviewing is great, right? It is the best out there, except the problem with behavioral interviewing is tell me about a time when you blah, blah, blah. So tell me about a time when you competed in the East German women's wrestling team. You're probably smart enough to give me an answer. I don't think you're an East German woman, but you could spin up an answer for that and might have one story, might have a second story, but because I've told you what I'm looking for, you'll give me an answer. If instead I ask, so I see you're in East Germany from 1984 to 1987, what did you do there? What were your best accomplishments? I'm putting the onus on you to tell me what you're good at and what drove value in that role. And when I do that job after job after job, I'm listening for the data that's going to tell me what is your core go-to strength. And I'm also getting all the data that you're not telling me, because never once did you tell me about some other aspects of the role that really matter. So I'm going to probe on those. I'm going to follow up once I've given you that open-ended approach first. But then I know that that's a secondary strength for you. It's not your core go-to. When you offer up that standard set of questions to a hiring manager, it reduces their cognitive overload. At the end of the day, we're trying to make hiring managers, interviewers feel competent and feel confident in that interviewing, because the more confident they are, the better job they'll do versus reverting to their old habits. Huge fan of AI transcription. AI transcription is what enables a lot of the later AI analysis we're going to do. So we need to make sure we're transcribing our interviews. Whether you use a platform or you use one of the publicly available tools, I personally prefer to just transcribe rather than record. I found that candidates accept hey, I'm going to transcribe this. It doesn't record, but it just creates an AI transcription. Is that okay? After thousands of interviews, I've never had anyone say no to that. But you do have to ask for that permission, because I live in a two-party state. If I were not to ask for that, technically I'm creating a felony and I don't want to go to jail. I like being up here, not in jail. So, and lastly, we're going to ask AI to coach us, either during the interview if we're using a platform, after the interview, reading the transcript. Where could I have been a more effective interviewer? How could I have gotten through the candidate? Was I too biased? Was I speaking too much? A variety of questions you can ask. Ideally, you're able to create some sort of sentiment view. What we look for when we're looking at analyzing the quality of an interview, number one is neutrality. We want to make sure that you're not leaning too much towards the interviewee, too much away from the interviewee. You're trying to stay as neutral as possible. We're looking at rapport building. Have they been able to establish a set of rapport characteristics with that person so that they disclose more? The more comfortable the candidate feels, the more willing they are to share information with us. We're going to look at percentage of time talking. We're going to look at how much data you're actually getting. Right? It's great to have rapport and it's great to have a good relationship, but if you're not getting data that matches your cipher, then you're not really getting the interview done. All of that put together gives you a good picture of how strong the interview was. We've talked about the watch-outs. Number one, always asking for permission to use AI when you're doing a transcription or recording. But number two, it's very important as well. I've seen incredibly smart clients of mine say, yeah, I love ChatGPT. What I do is I feed it the resume, and I say, give me a set of questions to ask this candidate. Well, what did we just say about structured interviewing? Structured interviewing relies on asking the same question the same way every time, regardless of the candidate. But if I've created my questions based off of their resume, that went out the door. Right? I need to base the questions off of the cipher rather than off of the candidate. A couple of prompts to get you started. So prompt one, ask your ChatGPT, your Copilot, your Claude, whatever tool you might be using. Those are the three that I've had most success with. By the way, I'm not a fan of Grok or Gemini. I can't really back that up with data substantiation, but I've had enough flukes with them that I'm really comfortable with those first three. But give me 4 to 5 role-specific questions to add to my interview guide to conduct that structured interview. Prompt number 2, after the fact, review the transcript. Tell me how I could have been a better interviewer in this situation. Let's talk about making the decision. So we've talked through defining the need, and we're going to use AI to help us move from that job description and get a much more prioritized and specific cipher for that role. We're going to use AI to help us generate an interview guide and to analyze it after the fact to see how we're doing as interviewers, and also to pull out some of the insights, which we'll talk a little bit more in the making the decision part. Let's explore making the decision and elevating our decision making. This actually isn't too bad. If you're doing structured hiring on your own right now, you probably write an email something like this. There's a lot of good best practices here. So you see HR reaching out to the hiring team. We're meeting with Julia today. By the end of the day, please fill out your cipher rating form. So we want you to complete a rating form for each interview. We want you to do it before a meeting so that you don't get biased by what others are saying in the meeting. You might change your opinion once we start talking about Julia, but I want to see what you think first, especially if you're a more junior person who's going to be in the room with a more senior person, where you might be apt to just kind of hang back and defer until I see which way the winds are blowing. No, you were invited to participate in this interview process. I want to hear your thoughts. You might have caught something that some of us might have missed. And then we are going to have a live debrief, whether it's in person or it's virtual. It's critical to actually compare notes live and talk about the data we found. What do you think the responses are to this email? I hope none of you recall or recognize any of these. I'm sure you do, right? We have the first person saying, I just wrapped up with her. She's great, definitely an A player, hire her, wonderful. Are we gonna get a great rating form from that person? No, we just did. She's great, hire her, right? The second person, nice and honest there. I haven't even done last week's. What are you talking about? There's no way you're getting a form from me. The third, don't worry about it. John and I talked. John's going to represent me at the meeting. We're good. Was John in the interview with you? No. But we're good. That level of engagement isn't going to get you to the right level of hiring. And look, I get it. We're going to vary the amount of effort we put into a hiring situation depending on the amount of damage we're going to face if we get it wrong. So if we are talking about a high turnover role, I hate to admit it, but there are roles in all of our companies that are just transient. People are going to come in, they're going to work for 16 bucks an hour, they're going to see an offer for 16.25, and they're going to leave us. So we're probably not going to invest a full day of interviewing and another hour of manager time at the end of the day to decide on that clerical position. But there needs to be something like that, and on a sliding scale, depending on the pain of replacing that person and of having the wrong person in there. When you're talking a director level, a manager level, a VP level, if you're not doing this, you're dooming yourself to rehiring again and again and again for that role. So what's our solution? First of all, to have an electronic rating form. AI is great because it can be a kindly little pesterer for you. Right? So you have an interview that's happened, and hey, here's your interview guide. I haven't seen a reply from you yet. Here's your rating form. Haven't seen a reply. Here's your rating form. And you keep asking and asking, so AI can follow up with you there. AI can also aggregate them for you, which I'll show you a couple slides. I'm going to not jump ahead. I'm a huge fan when you do your rating form of eliminating the middle. So on our rating form, we ask people to rate 1 through 4. 1, do not hire. 2, I wasn't impressed. 3, there's promise there. 4, oh my goodness, lock them down right now. There's no 2.5. I don't know. Let's see what Jesse had to say. Right? We don't want that answer. We want you to put a line in the sand. Same with the hiring recommendation. Should this candidate continue in the process or not? There is no, let's see. No, it's A or B. There's no A.5. When you've done that, you're able to, on a DIY approach, create something like this. Let's have that debrief where we lay out all of our interviewers, all of our cipher elements, and what were the ratings provided for each of those cipher elements. And we're going to use our debrief to really drill into what's the difference that we're seeing from one interviewer to the next. And when we're having that conversation, we're not just going to ask, what did you think? How did you feel? But rather, gee, Alex, how come you weren't able to rate Julia on culture fit? What was so unclear about that? And be specific. I want to hear what you saw in Julia that made you think you couldn't give her a rating. Now, this one's kind of easy. We're all 3s and 4s. Oftentimes, you'll see something with a lot more 2s and 1s if we're talking about a candidate that we haven't really thoroughly vetted yet, and we're going to have a lot of differing opinions on. And you want to really zero in on those key differences to make the right decision. AI can help you do a lot of this. So I started to say already, we're going to use AI to take our electronic rating forms and put them all together. Rather than I have to get up in front of that whiteboard and create that, let's pull together a hiring matrix so we see all of the ratings for all the cipher elements by each person, so we can understand where are the differences. Our second prompt, once we have electronic rating forms, AI, analyze those rating forms for us. Tell me what one person is saying versus another. Identify the discrepancies from the interviewers so we can really zero in on where the differences are, so we don't have to have a long conversation about Julia. Maybe we only need to get person 1 and person 2 to flesh out their key disagreement that's going to make the difference between a hire and not. And then third, because sometimes people don't turn in their rating forms, or maybe it's a newer interviewer who you don't have as much trust and faith in, let's use AI to do our own analysis. Let's ask AI to look at a comparison of this candidate against the job cipher, identify a set of strengths and a set of weaknesses specific to the cipher based off of the interview transcripts. Of course, we're going to remember Aesop's third law. We're going to look for positive and confirming and disconfirming evidence for every one of our strengths and every one of our weaknesses, so we can evaluate whether that is truly a strength or a weakness. And once we've done that for one candidate, we can do it for all candidates. And that's our fourth prompt there. So, we've talked about a lot today in terms of enabling, defining the need. We've talked about synthesizing the job description and our notes to get that cipher, and then looking outside to get a broader view of what we might be missing. We're going to empower our managers with a clear job interview guide that they know what questions to ask so they can walk in and be confident in that interview. And we're going to use AI to help us create that. We're also going to use AI to transcribe it and to pull some of the insights out. When you have that when you have that transcription, think about that hiring manager who has spent all day long interviewing 4, 5, 6 people. Think about yourselves who've done that. You can use AI to understand, what was it my 10 o'clock said? First of all, is that a guy or a woman? I don't even remember, right? And bring the conversation back to you so you can aid in your recall. You're also going to use AI to keep you honest as an interviewer and make sure that you're getting the coaching you need to get better and better. And if you have a platform to do it, you can also look at the interviewers underneath you and make sure that they're doing a good job. Lastly, we're going to elevate our decision making by using AI with an electronic cipher rating form. That's a key enablement. If we don't have that, we can't really use AI, so we have to have that. But using AI to analyze the rating forms, using AI to analyze the transcripts and come up with our own perspective on the candidate, and bringing all of that forward into the live debrief. So even if the people have done the interview rating form, you can pressure test them with some good questions if you have this independent analysis. So how do you get started? I've promised a QR code. This is a bunch of our resources. I'm going to show this again in a second, but I'll leave it here for one minute. You'll have a job cipher creation guide. So how do I create one of these ciphers? You'll have a structured interview framework and a set of questions there, and a rating scale handout. And then honestly, the journey of adoption begins with a single step. Try it. Pick a role. Ideally, if you're the hiring manager, great, you can take this on yourself. If you are the recruiter, take this on with a more progressive hiring manager who's willing to try and experiment a new way because they have to get it right on this next hire. Create a job cipher with them. Generate your structured interview questions. Transcribe them, analyze them, fill out your cipher rating form, and use the AI to help you compare the candidates. And you'll see the difference in quality versus the way you do it today. Once you've done that, over the first month, second month, start rolling it out. The benefits are really irrefutable. This is from an HBR study back in 2024. Teams using AI-enabled structured interviewing report 24 to 30% greater assessment consistency because of that, because they are asking the same questions the same way every time. And once your assessment consistency comes in, you're able to dial in exactly what you're looking for and increase your talent quality, putting you in a much better position rather than fighting compliance. I remember that video from yesterday with Hope being the cop, the mother, right? The father too, by the way. I was a little offended by that. You can help them, give them the tools your clients need to perform better, not just beating them with the stick because they haven't done it. And you'll see the impactful results. We've talked enough about the benefits. I want to leave a little bit of time for questions, but I love this graphic at the bottom. It's not about AI. It's about using AI with human intelligence, and that's what's going to drive the ROI in our talent acquisition plans. And once you put this in place, it becomes a self-perpetuating system that makes you better and better and better. Effectively spending less time on recruiting going forward because you're not rehiring for all the old roles, and you can just move forward on the new roles. So sincerely, thank you. Thank you for waking up so early. I'd love to see you at my book signing, love to see you at my brain day. I think it's technically full, but who knows? If you really want to talk about the role of executive assessments in talent acquisition, come join. We can probably pull up another chair. I don't know, it's new, but do it. And also reach out. If you're on this journey, I'd love to hear from you, love to hear what's working for you, what's not working for you, and to see where we can help. So thank you very much. I think we have a couple minutes for questions. If you have questions, if you're looking to go get a refill on your coffee. Yes?
I was looking and I realized the rating scale. I did not see any guidance on how you rate the person, say 1 or 2. Is that something that's part of it? And second question too, how do you incorporate a more of an emotional and physical observation of the candidate's facial expression, emotional state?
Sure. So the questions were, I saw the rating scale, but what is a 1 versus a 4? And secondly, how do we think about a more visual interpretation of the candidate? I'll deal with the second one first. Personally, we don't. I think the visual interpretation, I'm scared by. I've seen too many bias reports. I don't know if the technology is there. I think that this is where some of the difference in races comes through, and its ability to read a white person versus a black person. I don't want to go there. For us, we rely on all of the voice-based interpretation. It's the words they use. You could argue it's still open to bias, but I think it's a little bit crisper. There's some people down in the expo hall who disagree with me, who are more expert than I am on that, so you can follow up with them. What I teach in the long form of this is you want the hiring manager to have a quick conversation with the interviewers ahead of time to talk about what good looks like. And so ideally, especially for your highest value hires, you're going to have that conversation of this is what we're looking for. This is what a 4 will look like. This is what a 1 looks like. This is the data I'm looking for. So at the end of the day, and the rating form will give a little bit more color on this, but it's an assessment of to what extent have I heard the data that matches my deliverables and my efforts. And it becomes kind of easy in that way because it's not, when you're so specific in your cipher, you know exactly what you're looking for. It sounds like a cliche answer, but it really works because of that specificity in the cipher.
I mean, the reason I ask is that I just had an interview. Everybody thinks it's great. And the president just say, nope, I don't like this guy. That's all from facial. So that's like.
And the question has to be, how come? What's the data you heard? So when that automotive services client, when he was just starting, he and his board differed on the procurement guy. And he created a cipher. He's like, Craig, I just created one of your ciphers. And I was going back and forth with my board. And his private equity activist board, who owns his company, darn it, right? And are very clear in their opinion. And they said, yeah, we don't really like this guy. He's like, well, I asked him these questions. This is the data I heard. This is what we said matters. I want to hire him. That was 2 years ago. The guy has added numerous times his salary in procurement savings, has really worked out because he had data to refute. And so if you had a cipher-based process, you could push back and say, this is what we said he needed to do. This is all the evidence that says he can do it. What are we missing? Now, you might be missing something. Maybe the president saw something, but challenge him to come up with the specifics of what he saw that maybe should have been incorporated in the cipher. Maybe the cipher is wrong. Maybe not, and he's just making a biased judgment. But, yes?
How do you deal with like soft skills? How do you deal with those parts of the job description that you can't really put in as quantifiable, especially in the cases where you might be an OFCCP compliant organization? Like, we struggle with writing precise enough job descriptions to be able to get to something that we can use this sort of thing on, because it's hard to quantify.
So I want to be clear about my expertise when you start talking OFCCP right, so, but let me speak generically, and if I'm wrong, tell me. But the difference between the job description is public facing, so you can't put all of the specifics there. The cipher's internal, so you should be able to put the specifics there and the behaviors you're looking for. And our take on culture fit, I'm afraid to use that word because culture add is supposed to be the word we're using, but honestly, I think it is fit because you need the person I said it earlier, you need the person to swim in the pool you have before you get them to change the pool. And I love the idea of culture add. Philosophically, it's great, but I can't hire someone for the culture I want to have. I need to hire them for the culture I do have. So what you're going to do in your interview is you're going to observe the business situations and how they tackled that and whether the cultural way they tackled that business challenge is synonymous with the way business challenges are tackled at your company. That's the culture fit. Less so than I'm an outgoing, gregarious person. Well, why are you always in your office? Well, because they told me to say I'm outgoing and gregarious, so I said that in the interview. You want to see how do they actually work through that challenge, because that's where culture happens. You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great to meet you.
Law attorney, and he told me to add it to every job description. He said, put a bullet point that says, must be able to work collaboratively with others. So that way they're not combative. There's people who show up, they're constantly fighting. Everything is an argument, everything is a whatever, but so that will solve. So when, unfortunately, in terms of terminations, you can say you are not working collaboratively
Yes.
with others.
Okay, so it gives you that out.
So you have to be able
And it's okay to do it even because even though they can't necessarily quantifiably prove that, it's still something.
Well,
Yeah.
right, you could document the fact that we had a team meeting and you never show up for the team meetings. I asked you to work with Jimmy and you didn't want to work with Jimmy. And now you have your, but ideally you interview so that you can reduce the amount of times you're terminating.
It's a job requirement as opposed to a pre-existing skill.
And so when you're interviewing about the job, you're going to ask them, how did you approach that? Who else was on the team? It was really me. I mean, honestly, I came up with the idea, I executed it, I got it done, because the people who work with me are all idiots. Okay, great, and you want to respond to that and say, great, tell me more, right? And like, give them a little bit of that cookie and you'll get more and you'll learn who they really are. Thank you.
Data here surrounding like 80% or 82% of the recruiters think they're delivering correctly, right?
Yes.
And 60% of the hiring managers saying that they're not approaching what they want. Today is very difficult to find that right fit, right? In the culture or wherever you want to put those candidates. How do you feel about percentages that go like in the market saying 70% or 80% of the companies don't have the right talent today working with them, right? Because that's a number, and it's a big number.
Yeah.
For me, I don't mind that number because I think it's not that true. I think companies internally need to work and train with their teams to approach new technologies, new sustainable parts.
Yeah.
But how do you feel about that? Because there's a lot of data in the market, and we are trying to get that right fit, and sometimes we get lost.
So if we're holding an exceptionally high bar, and if we even just go back to that leadership IQ study, and if we believe that out of 100 people who are hired, 49 are going to quit, 33 will stay and be meh talent-wise, and 18 will stay and be excellent. So now we're dealing with the 18 to 33, which roughly works out to 40-ish% are great for the company, 60-ish% are not. But that's at an exceptionally high bar of highly successful in their roles. And it goes to the debate of A players versus B players. Everyone says, A player talent, I want A player talent. If the Celtics only had 5 Jaylen Browns, you know what I'm talking about, right? It would not be the ideal scenario. If the Indiana Fever had 5 Caitlin Clarks, well, she's special. She might be great. But typically, if you have 5 A players, their ability to come together may be questionable. So there is room for B players. I do think that. But you've got to make sure you're giving them the training and the support they need to thrive. And so getting the right talent and roles really goes beyond just the recruiting, but it starts with recruiting and it starts with getting as many of the highest potential people in through recruiting. Yeah. Thank you. Really appreciate you all coming. Oh, yes.
Which is ChatGPT, Copilot. What was the third one?
Claude. Yes. Yeah, big fan of Claude. That's what we have. We'll rely on Claude a lot for our embedded AI on our platform. We'll switch between models depending on what we're looking for, but Claude has been really strong for us. I've heard great things about the latest ChatGPT one, but we haven't tested that one yet.
Yeah, one more for you.
Yes.
Obviously, your whole goal was to try to get AI into a human's hands to use.
Yes.
I assume this does not work in any capacity if you're using a chat agent to deliver the question set to, I mean, is that something that's just you don't recommend?
It is. So I don't believe in letting a chat agent ask the questions. I think it's the wrong foot forward. Right? If you don't care about the talent, that having that personal connection, then okay. But if you say talent is our greatest asset, please meet with my chatbot before I deem you worthy to meet with a person, it sends the wrong message. Maybe at the lowest level it's acceptable. Ethically, morally, it still kind of tweaks my buttons, but I get that we have to make some trade-offs.
It's the challenge of the speed to the, so we're dealing
Yes.
with it with speed to market.
Yes.
Because we're dealing with like retail, storefront
Right.
folks as well as warehousing individuals who are working 24 hours a day.
Yes.
We're struggling with the fact that if we don't talk to them by way of chat, somebody else will. And, they want to get the whole process done and be scheduled to meet a person tomorrow.
A person I spoke with yesterday almost convinced me. He's the CEO of a startup.
Yeah, I heard you say that.
Yes, and his point was that, well, we like the companies to give an option. Say you can
Right, well, you
go.
have to legally, really.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that. Okay.
Yeah, you kind of do.
He gives them,
Yeah.
good to know.
Yeah.
If you want to meet with someone immediately, here's a chat. If you want to go into the people-based process, you can put your resume in this batch and you may or may not get an interview. Look, I get it. So many of my clients complain to me about, Craig, and a lot of the initial noise in our rollout came from the automotive technicians who get mad at their GM on Thursday afternoon. F this place. Right, exactly. The pickup truck's coming on Saturday to pick up my tools and bringing them over. Exactly. And so I get that's what you're dealing with. It doesn't lead to the best outcomes, but if that's what you have to, if that's the ball you're playing with, then you have to play that ball.
100%.
So
Thank you.
it was great to meet you. What's your name?
Danielle.
Danielle, nice to meet you.
Pleasure as well.
Thank you.